I think it's very interesting part of the brain. I'm really impressed on it. So that's why I want to talk about it.
When I woke up this morning, it was a bit late, but I didn't care, so I just went ahead and prepared myself. Then I looked at the mirror, my eyebrow was good, so I said to myself, I'm ready to the world. I'm ready to the world. When I ate my breakfast, I was hungry and thirsty. I didn't care, so I just went ahead and prepared myself.
Thank you very much, Sergio, for giving me a chance to be part of my web series. And I would like to hear a lot of things about neurosurgery and about the brain. Before that, I want to hear about you.
I was born in Caracas. I'm Venezuelan. I did my medical career in the universities, Central University of Venezuela. In Spanish, we say Universidad Central de Venezuela. School of Medicine, Vargas. It's a last name of a famous medical doctor in the history of Venezuela. And also, I did the neurosurgery specialization in the hospital Vargas. So I did everything in the same school of medicine. Thereafter, I went to France and I did a master and a doctorate in English PhD in the city of Lyon, l'Hôpital Neurologique de Lyon, Neurological Hospital of Lyon, and the Medical Faculty of Medicine. So then I went back to Venezuela and started my professional practice, and I keep on doing some of the research from my doctorate and also in my field of practice, which is functional neurosurgery. Functional means problem of the function of the brain. In this field, we have a movement disorder like Parkinson, dystonia, spasticity. We have epilepsy, psychiatric disorder. Most of the surgical cases are obsessive compulsive disorder. Some of them are aggressiveness, very few. And finally, pain, intractable pain. Pain from lesion in the nervous system, from many conditions, traumatic, stroke, multiple surgeries, etc. It can cause a chronic, long-lasting neuropathic pain. So most of these patients need finally a surgery to stop the signal of pain goes to the brain. So we can stop them in the majority of cases with electrical pulses in the spinal cord or even in the brain. So that's more or less my field of work. And doing this, I had to go deeper and deeper in the study of function. Among these functions, the amygdala and hippocampus. In brain, we have connected three strong emotions. Those three emotions are pleasure, rage, and fear. Rage to attack a possible lethal enemy, fear to go away from a possible lethal enemy, and pleasure to multiplicate the species. So with these three emotions, any living species can keep and evolve in the earth. Without the amygdala, any species would survive. So we need these three emotions to survive. Those three emotions have to be already in most of all species, as the human being, have to be controlled by the cortex, the cerebral cortex.
Why it's really necessary for us to have amygdala to survive?
Any living species that has not memory will die in any moment. So even little mosquitoes has little circuits of memory. Because every species have to remember what was poison, what is good, what is profitable. Every species. So there are circuits that can recreate some dangerous situation or pleasure situation in order for the living species to address their life through those good things and to avoid the bad things. That's very basic, very basic. But in the normal life, you use those three emotions to avoid discussion, to avoid arguing, or to argue, or to attack somebody verbally because these people do something that you don't like. The pleasure can be going to a good movie, to have a good moment, to enjoy. You have all type from the little emotion or little experience to the most intense experience. But all of that are triggered in the amygdala. Round is the amygdala. Can you see it?
Yes.
Imagine the three emotions are like the three primary colors. You remember that? Red, blue, and yellow. And you can mix them to have complex basic emotion. These three emotions, let me put it clear, is basic emotion, primitive, primordial emotion. Then we have more complex emotion that they are not siege in the amygdala. So how can we use the rage in normal social environment? The rage can be people you dislike. You can also use the rage to fight against injustice, to fight against war. You can use the rage for fight corruption, insecurity, poverty. All those things is a good use to the rage. But you can also use the rage to harm people, to harm career of the other people, to harm the prestige of other people. So that's why the cortex have always to control this emotion, to address them for a constructive goal. The fear can lead you to have insecurity, fear, untrust, and this unconfidence can lead you to keep you from going to do new projects, new goals, because you don't trust yourself, you don't trust the life. And finally, you can also use pleasure in the normal life to enjoy even little things. You can enjoy as I said, an afternoon. You can enjoy a good garden that you are seeing any moment. You can enjoy many things if you address your pleasure to a good path. So you can use this amygdala for many things, but you have to control it. The amygdala is like a motor, like an engine, and then you have to have the will address these primitive emotions to good goals. The hippocampus is closely connected to the amygdala, not only because of the synapses of neurons, but also anatomically they are close. The amygdala is here, and the hippocampus is all this structure that goes all around in the middle of the brain. This is the front, this is the back of the head. One side is toward us, and the other side is toward the image. And this is the top, and the feet are here, going down. So the amygdala is more or less in the middle, a little bit in the front, and close to the midline, close to the middle. For example, this is a cut of the brain looking toward us. The back of the head is toward the images, and the eyes of the person is toward us. This is one side, the other side, the top, and the feet, the bottom here. You can see the amygdala in each side here. And in these other slides, you can see the amygdala here. So it is closely, physically, and synaptically connected to the hippocampus. Why it is called hippocampus? Well, hippocampus is the seahorse. Hippocampus is here, also in the middle. It goes from this part and goes all around up here. I mean, from the base of the brain going up and goes a little curve around here. When you cut in this way, like this, transversal, in the ancient anatomists, they see that in this cut, the hippocampus has the shape of a seahorse, like this. That's why they call it hippocampus. That's all the meaning of the name. There's anything mysterious in that. The thing is that the hippocampus receives connection from the different cortex areas. I mean, cortical. This is the cortex. And then it goes to the hippocampus, and vice versa, from the hippocampus to different cortical areas. The hippocampus is the element, the most primordial structure for memory. So the amygdala is close to hippocampus. It means that those experiences that has been involved with strong, primitive, primordial emotion as fear, rage, or pleasure will be quickly strong fits in the memory. People in advertising know that. That's why some advertisements make you fear, like bad news that are always in the social media. That is to impress the people, to make the news to go through, trigger the amygdala, and so it can be fit in the memory. That's why people in marketing, they know very well that. Why it is connected with the cortex? Because we have cortex specialized in different functions. For example, in red here is the motor, is the movement, and some part of the cortex are in charge for the movement of mouth, face, hand. Look at the hand, a big region of the cortex, because the hand has very complex movement. Then the body and lower limbs. Also in blue, you have the sensation. The sensation have tact. The tact have the same distribution of the anatomy. Hands, face, hand, etc., and the rest of the body. You have also a visual cortex. I mean, the neurons that are triggered for visual, for vision, for images. And you have also the ear hearing, to hear, listening cortex. These are neurons that are triggered for what we hear through our ears. All of these areas are connected to the hippocampus and vice versa, and also to the amygdala. Because if we hear something that reminds us something that can scare us, for example, the sound of a motorcycle in just next to your open windows in your car, sometimes you have a quick reaction of attention. That scares us a little bit and raise your attention. So what happened? The sound from the ear enter the brain, connect immediately, goes to the cortex, but always have some of the axons, some branches that goes to the amygdala immediately. The amygdala already has associated that sound with fear, and it goes straight to the hippocampus and straight to other areas in order to raise attention immediately. Why the hippocampus? The hippocampus already have memorized a long time ago that sound with danger, because you have heard something about what happened with some friend or some family or etc., etc. So all what you learn during your life, especially linked to those strong emotions, are well fixed in the brain through the hippocampus. Also, you can have also things that you see, shadows, some silhouette that you see in the night, and you quickly are fear that somebody is close to you that can harm you. There are many things that can arise some fear, and they go through your eyes, through your ears, or even touching. For example, if you feel a burning sensation, it goes to the cortex to make it conscious, but a little branch goes always to the amygdala to rise any of those three emotions and go through the hippocampus to remember what we have, and goes to other structure to rise our attention or to accommodate to this sensation that is taking our attention. So you see, for example, all the sensation goes to the amygdala, and the amygdala trigger the hippocampus and also other structure, which is the accumbens. The accumbens is the first trigger of a reaction. That reaction can be a movement, a word, can be also a decision. Not a movement, but a decision or a conclusion, wherever. So the accumbens is the origin of our response. And it goes also to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the central structure that governs all the autonomic system, which is the sympathetic and parasympathetic. That's why when you have rage, you become red and your pupils are dilated. All these autonomic or vegetative responses come from the hypothalamus. Or also, you are very scared and you become pale because of vascular contraction of the skin. Why the vascular contraction? Because all the blood have to be diverted to the muscle in case you have to run or you have to fight. That's why you get pale, and your pupil becomes little. So all these vegetative responses are controlled by the hypothalamus. So you see all the interaction that the amygdala has in the very critical function of the brain, and it is connected with the hippocampus. It can also rise the memory connected with that sensation. How these synapses can be so strong connected? It is called long-term potentiation. One neuron can be connected with few connections to another group of neurons, but they can also connect with a lot more of branches to these other neurons. Like this, you have some neurons connected to another neuron. So you can have some branches or you can have a lot of branches. This change of connection is thanks to neuroplasticity. So neurons can divide their axons and to have more connection with the other neurons in order to trigger with very few stimulus and can trigger a lot of neurons. So that's why you can remember something with even a little noise, a little sound for example, the sound of the beach that you hear in the radio or hear wherever. You hear the sound of the waves breaking in the beach, and immediately you raise all the scenario of an experience. So how it comes? Because the sound goes to the amygdala and hippocampus. Let's imagine the hippocampus is not curved, but in a straight line. Because of the shape, it can connect it with almost all the areas of the brain. As I show you, the motor area, tactile, visual, listening cortex. So you see visual, motor. Imagine the whole brain is all flat and the hippocampus is flat like a line in order to understand what I said. If you have a sound that can trigger a pleasant experience, it goes to the hippocampus and it has strong connection with a memory. So those connections select exactly what are the connection with the select neurons of each area to recreate the scenario. Some of the neurons in the visual area are triggered and they are activated to have the vision, the scenario. They are very weak, but you can almost see what you are remembering. That's why some people, to have a good memory or to remember something very well, try to close their eyes. So the neurons that are activated by the actual vision can be closed in order to activate those neurons because of the stimulation through the hippocampus. So that's why people close their eyes to remember very well the scenario. Or you want to remember something that you heard, or a song, and you ask the people to stop talking. So
Yes.
you don't have the interference of the other neurons that are activated because what the people is talking. So please be silent because I'm trying to remember the song. And through the hippocampus, these other neurons of the hearing activate a little bit until you get it. So you can create the whole scenario through only one stimulus that came through your ear, for example, the sound of the sea, and it goes and connect exactly with all those neurons in each area that recreate the whole memory. Let's see, for example, imagine you remember an evening you had in, let's say, in the Riviera Ligure in Italy, in Genova or
Wow.
Camonti, and you were in the house, in some friend's house. It was summer, so the weather was hot, and you feel the hot in the brain area of the sensation, body sensation. You can also remember that the pasta you were eating was very good, so you have the area of the taste, and you remember also that we were talking blasts and the sound of everybody's laughing. You can also have the scenario in the visual area, and you remember that it was all still daylight outside because it was summer. And you remember that you were looking at the windows. How can you trigger all that? For example, because that day you were eating the same pasta. So you have the taste. The taste go through the amygdala. The amygdala remember that pleasant moment. Go to the hippocampus. The hippocampus, because of its shape, like this one you see here, because of its shape, connect with this exact neurons in each part of the cortex to recreate the moment. That is more or less the base of the memory. And as I said, all this connection can memorize moments and also concepts and everything. How can you do a strong connection without these three emotions? Very difficult. Boring things are very difficult to memorize. That's why one has to study too much to play a guitar or to study medicine or whatever, because all what is training and sacrificing is very difficult to memorize. That's why we have to do a lot of effort to memorize those kind of things. That is also why some teachers like to teach with some kind of emotion, so that the student can fit the concept easier than if they are teaching in a standard way, in a classic way. So that's why teachers, for example, like to talk about the trip of Marco Polo in the Far East as a fabulous, as a count, as a romance, in order to the children be more and more enthusiastic to know what happened with Marco Polo. For example, that's a kind of teaching. You can teach, put in some pleasure, or even fear, and because you are talking about some very dangerous moment that Marco Polo has, he was about to fall in an ambush. So people are scared and want to know what happened. That's a kind of things to memorize through the amygdala and the hippocampus. You can also meet these three basic emotions. That's why people feel pleasure with fear and they go to the scary movies because they lack it. Or people that have pleasure with the rage and they are always arguing all the time, every day. And that's why you can also mix rage and fear. You can pass from fear, extreme fear to extreme rage in just some seconds, because fear is when you want to go away from the enemy. But if the enemy have you very in corner, the only issue you have is to attack, even if you know that you are going to lose, but you don't have any other alternative. So the fear can turn to rage, and it can be also possible in the normal daily experience, daily living, when people have fear because they are in a very difficult situation, and in a certain moment they don't see any solution and they attack verbally to the person that is trying to argue with them. So this change from rage to fear is very common sometimes. What you can do with the amygdala, you can use it for asking for justice, to enjoy good moments, even little moments, even things that seems very frivolous. You can enjoy to be in the beach, but you can use also your amygdala to protest, to ask for justice, as I said. You make also little things to teach children, and you need to enjoy that. But you can also use the rage for destroying things. That's why the amygdala is located in the base of the brain, because the cortex, what you want to do is in the cortex, and the cortex has also to control the amygdala and other structure to address all these impulse to good things, to good things.
And we try to do some surgery on the amygdala and the hippocampus.
Not the hippocampus, but can be selective destroyed in case of uncontrollable rage. I had some cases very uncomfortable. People that used to destroy things in the house, the table, furniture, maybe not attacking people because they are family, but they destroy things in the house. All people around him or her cannot stand that anymore, and they ask for help to the psychiatrist, and they call me to do finally a psychosurgery. Normally, they immediately have to be destroyed. You can ask me, you tell me, okay, but what about the other emotion in the amygdala? What about pleasure? Well, when one of the emotions, which is a group of neurons, are very hyperactive, the other two emotions are practically obliterated, are practically disappear. So if you do this and you destroy the amygdala, it's very difficult to know what exactly subnucleus of the amygdala is responsible of a great rage, or what is the pleasure, and what's the. They are more or less identified. But in the surgical field, you can go so selective. That's not possible. So you either destroy the amygdala or you don't do anything. But anyway, the other two emotions are completely disappear. After this surgery, the patient becomes quiet, very quiet, and surprisingly, they start to have some pleasure and they start to be more reasonable. So you really don't destroy, you can destroy the amygdala, but you don't destroy the feeling, because the connection from these other two places are still present with other part of the brain. So somehow the other two emotions rise a little bit, and they can be more evident after the surgery. You know, when can you teach people to dominate the amygdala? Is during the first years of life, from 0 to 14 years of life. Is when the brain has most of the plasticity. So you can teach the children, your children or your nephew, whatever, teach them how to dominate, how to control, how to discipline, and maybe not in the classical way, hitting the children, but you can teach them. And it is very easy for them in doing those years. After 14, you can always learn something, but it's becoming difficult because you always have plasticity, brain's plasticity, but less and less and less along the line. There's other emotion we haven't talked about them, which is love, compassion, empathy, and that kind of emotion doesn't have a group of neurons. In the amygdala, yes, because as I told, these three emotions play a critical role for survival. But those other emotions I call complex emotion, not primitive, but complex emotion. And they are all dispersed in the brain. Those, they don't have the long-term potentiation synapses like in the amygdala. When we born, we are already good synapses for the fear, rage, and pleasure. But we don't have connection for love, empathy, and compassion. We have to create them because they don't exist. We have to create them. The best age to create them, to form those synapses are those years. So you have to teach the children not only to dominate the amygdala, but also to make the connection to love, compassion, and empathy, and all other, including to be happy. I'm not talking pleasure and to laugh a lot. I'm talking about the feeling of happiness. That is emotion that have to be created. That are synapses that have to be formed during the life. And you can use them and you can trigger them through the amygdala. So if you can balance all this, you can take a lot of advantage of the amygdala and hippocampus to create all those complex emotions and to address productive life.
If a person is having a traumatic experience, is there a destruction on the amygdala and hippocampus, or it's just psychological? It's not actually physiological thing.
You can work a lot to reduce a bad experience, reducing the synapses of that experience, as well as you can do the long-term potentiation. You can do also the long-term depression. You can connect strongly some synapses, but you can also make them weak and to retract all the branches I told you for the neuron. They can retract all the connection and to make that synapses weak to trigger, very weak to trigger. So many people overcome bad experience, but they don't forget. They can talk about the bad experience, but they are not associated anymore with rage and with disgusting feelings. So they keep the memory because the synapses exist, but they are no longer triggered in a such strong way. And yes, you can retract all the synapses through the control of the cortex. But sometimes you need a lot of therapy. Sometimes people need a lot of time and therapy to achieve this. Other people are more easy to forget. Other people take the life in another way. Why? Maybe because these people were taught from the beginning, from the childhood, how to love, how to have empathy, how to see the beauty of life. So all this connection, all this complex emotion can also work to reduce bad experience, because all of them are connected with the hippocampus and amygdala, vice versa. So if you have a strong feeling of happiness, you can easily turn down bad experience, or you can turn them, you can use it as something that you learn that can be used for good things. So you turn the bad experience to something good. You can do that as long as you have developed the other complex emotion right now.
But I was thinking that is it possible that we can delete some of the memories? It could be great.
If you identify where are those little synapses that goes then through the cortex to recreate the bad experience, if you can eliminate them surgically, you can erase the bad experience. But it's very difficult. I mean, we are talking about microscopically little population of neurons that go along the hippocampus and make the synapses. But let's say that in theory, those neurons exist and you can eliminate it if in the future the technology allows us to do that. For example, there are means to eliminate neurons chemically. If you identify that these neurons are susceptible for some kind of neural drug and those synapses are functioning because of that drug, you can inject the drug, it can go through the hippocampus and just eliminate those neurons that can match with that drug. But I mean, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going to because they are
Afraid of some of the memories. It could be great.
If you want me to go deeper, I can speak for you. No.
So people just gonna have a good life, just yeah, it could be really great. But yeah, maybe it's not on my timeline.
What do you think? Good afternoon for you.
hospital ready. Did you sleep well? Yeah, I think we're ready. It's a really okay. We're not starting. We're just conversing right now. Playing on the thought that